four of the most dangerous words in the English language, I say, is I already know that. And when I'm explaining things to people, and I used to be like this. I remember I went to a seminar once, and the guy on stage said, lots of coaches out there in the audience, lots of people who know everything. But the thing is, when you get caught up, let's say the speaker says something incorrect, or he quotes the wrong person, or he says the wrong statistic, you latch onto that, or he's about to explain something, and you go, "Oh, I already know all this. I don't need to listen." Then you get caught up on that, and you miss everything else that comes after it.
Welcome to the Mindful Paths podcast with Nick Day and Hari Kalymnios, where we explore the fascinating worlds of mindset, mindfulness, fitness, well-being, vitality, leadership, and personal development.
Our goal is to provide you with the insights to help you live a more fulfilling, happier, and healthier life.
If you're striving to be a better parent, friend, leader, colleague, or boss, or if you simply want to be more mindful and aware of the world around you, then this Mindful Paths podcast is for you.
We invite you all to eavesdrop on our conversations, and we challenge you to discover a new insight to help you on your own journey towards personal growth and positive change.
So sit back,
relax, and let's begin our journey together
on the Mindful Paths podcast.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm good, mate. How are you? I saw you did very well in your Ironman.
Yeah,
19th, was it?
It was, yeah. A week ago or so now. Yeah, it was hot. 36 degrees. It was hot. And something you can't really prepare for in the UK. But it was good. Yeah. We can get into it for sure.
Did you ever get the cordyceps I mentioned to you last time or not?
I didn't. I did have a look. I'll admit I had a look. I'll admit it was a brief look, and I found it online, but it was never going to get to me here. And after the debacle of getting a set of Lego sent to me with £7 and spending 40 quid in import charges, I thought I'd wait till I get back to the UK. But it was a good race. It's 36 degrees. I didn't quite get the time I wanted. I was hoping to go under 5 hours. Ended up being 5 hours, 5 minutes. But I lost 5 minutes in the swim. So that's probably where it went. And
you were saying they threw a curveball at you.
They did. I mean, I've never done any triathlon or Ironman events. This would be my 6th 70.3, and I've done 3 full Ironmans and obviously multiple triathlons as well. I've never done a non-wetsuit swim of a distance that's over sort of 1.5K. And on the day of the race, so as me packed on my wetsuit, went down, typical preparation that I usually do. I hadn't really gone into the race briefing or looked at any of the details. And apparently at this particular race, over 25.4 degrees, there's no wetsuits. So I get down there, and so they announced it's a non-wetsuit swim. Slight bit of panic. For those that listen to previous episodes will know I'm not the most comfortable in the water anyway. And I was like, okay, that's fine. There'll be no wetsuit, which means I lose I'm a poor swimmer, so it means I lose the buoyancy. Wetsuit gives you lots of buoyancy, which reduces drag. So I was a bit concerned about that. And you just feel a little bit more safe in a wetsuit when you're going into unknown waters. And because the extra buoyancy makes you just feel a little bit in the water. So that was a bit of a setback. And it cost me because I was the slowest I've ever swam that distance ever. And had a bit of a panic attack. It was about close to a panic attack, maybe not quite that bad, but in the water as well. I got kicked in the face, lost my goggles, nose clip disappeared to the bottom of the sea or the lake, and every time you try to get your goggles back on, there's kind of another foot that kicks you in the head. So you you're trying to get water, but every time you try and breathe, you're taking more water on, and because you're in race mode, your heart rate's up anyway. So had a bit of a panic in the sense that I just couldn't get my breath back, couldn't get into any kind of stride. It was in the first 300 meters of the race, and I was like, you know what? And funnily enough, for anyone that followed me on Strava for that, you'll see I only recorded the first 100 meters of the race because basically I got kicked in the face, stopped my watch, meaning to pause it, and ended up ruining all of my data tracking. So I had no idea for the rest of the swim how fast I was going or how far I'd gone. With a little alert set up, so kind of everything went wrong in terms of preparation. Couldn't use my wetsuit, mucked up my timing. A little bit of a panic attack, lost my nose clip. I hate swimming without a nose clip, and I had to reposition my goggles whilst taking on water. So, all being considered, I was actually pretty happy to get it done, but I lost 5 minutes in the water, and I ended up finishing 5 minutes. Literally 5:05:07 was my time, and I wanted to go under 5 hours. So, I was 5 minutes and 48 seconds over my usual swim time. So I feel like that cost me my target time, but. Hey, you know what? It was a beautiful race. Countryside was amazing. Challenging bike course, over 1,000 meters of elevation, over 90K, and then a half marathon in 36 degree heat. That was, to be fair, it was probably a little bit less than that. It was 36 in peak time of the day. I finished before peak time, so it's probably more like 32, 33 degrees, but it was hot. It was hot.
What do you do your half marathon and marathon times in when you do these triathlon Ironmans?
So without any triathlon, just running flat, my PB for marathon is 250. In an Ironman, my best is 330. So in a half Iron, my PB within an Ironman competition, so post ride, post swim, is 133, which I did in Utah. But I ended up doing 142, I think, 143 this time. So I lost a few minutes on the run. Actually, the first lap, amazing. Yeah, so I went around really quick. First lap, I was 40 minutes, and I was like, "Oh, I'm bang on." So about 40 minutes to the first 10k, and I was doing really well, running sort of 4-minute Ks. And then the I don't know if it was a lot of this kind of racing is mental anyway, and I don't know if it was mentally I lost it, or the heat, or the lack of training, or whatever. But I absolutely faded badly on the second run. Second half of the lap just faded. Ended up going down sort of 5.5-minute Ks. So yeah, finished in 5:05. But you know what? I wasn't really racing for anything, so I was happy to get it done. I enjoyed the day. I was supported by my friends Neil and Alex and Lucy and the kids. So yeah, it was good, man. It was good. I was there. I only really raced because one of my best mates, Neil, was racing the following day to do the full Ironman in Bishi. So he actually had to do a marathon in 36-degree heat, and that was testing. So I was a little bit for me thankful that I was doing the half, not the full. Yeah, it was good. It was good. And a couple of setbacks. I mean, I know you always talk about Oura rings and the recovery score.
Yeah.
I'll give you some interesting data. So I've lost my Oura ring. For those that listen to this regularly will already know that, but I haven't found it yet. But I do get my HRV score and a little recovery thing on my Garmin. I've got Garmin Fenix and Fenix 7. And in the morning of the race, and interestingly, it's probably the only time I've gone into a race where I literally felt nothing going in. I was pretty don't really feel anxious, don't feel nervous. I've also done a few of them before. Wasn't racing for anything. I wanted to go under 5 hours, but I've gone under 5 hours several times before. So if I did or I didn't really matter. I didn't really feel anything. And I looked at my HRV score. It was a 4 a.m. start. It was a 6:40 race start, but I had to get a shuttle bus to the venue. So I woke up at 4 a.m. So obviously, your watch is never going to give you the best kind of preparation score. Yeah. It's the lowest I've ever seen it. It gave me a readiness score of 1 out of 100 for the day.
Oh my God.
I've never seen a 1, literally never. I thought, well, that doesn't bode too well for today's effort. And my HRV was really low, like the lowest it's ever been. And the advice my watch was giving me was rest day. Do not exercise, just rest and recover. And I was like, okay, brilliant. So that didn't probably set. It was interesting because these bits of data are really useful in learning how to manage your body, right? But when you haven't got a choice, we've always got a choice. But when
they're not useful on the day of the race.
No, well, they shouldn't be. It doesn't put you in the best mindset space. We're talking about mindful pass here. Okay, I'm ready for race day. Let's get it on. And you read that and you watch it. Oh, now. And you instantly feel more tired. You instantly feel like you're not ready because the watch has told me so. So I had to kind of ignore the data to a certain degree and just blame it on the fact I'm up at 4 a.m. and it is what it is and go. And I kind of wish I'd never seen it. And I wondered to myself, had it given me a readiness score of 99, would I have raced any differently? Would it have changed my performance? I don't know. But I feel like it had a little bit of an impact.
It's good that these things are pretty bang on. I mean, one to me maybe indicates that the watch was faulty because I find it crazy that it gave you a score of 1. I could expect like 6 or 8 or 10 or something like that. One feels like it's not working or something. But yeah, my score gave me a score of 80 something today, which is good. I still feel a bit tired, but the last 2 days have been kind of in the 60s. I've had like a couple of later nights than I would normally have, a bit of alcohol, which always mucks things up massively. I mean, just for those listening, for my lowest heart rate, it will make a difference from whether it's in the low 40s to in the 50s. And normally my lowest heart rate won't change by more than 1 or 2 beats over the course of a few days. So alcohol really, really screws with it. But I mean, in terms of the topic of today, I was talking about maybe overcoming setbacks. You were talking about setbacks that you had earlier on in the race. It might be quite interesting to talk about. And I think you were you mentioned something earlier about small things. That was it.
You were talking about dealing with setbacks, right? And I had one. So I'm out here in France. Been here for a month. It's my dad. We're having a big sort of party for my dad and 80 guests. So from your beat model, right, filling the community bucket, filling the social bucket. We've been out with all my family I haven't seen for years, many of them cousins, all people we got on really well with. They put on a cabaret show. We've had live music. We've had gigs. All the family members that play musical instruments, including myself, have been up on stage, and it's been alcohol now solidly for at least the last. So this is all post Ironman race. So get back from Vichy, and since I've got back 6-7 days ago, all we've done is drink every single night. They've got a bar here. My uncle bought a 72 keg of ale, and we've been drinking. We had 2 nights of solid partying with the cabaret show and everything else. And I haven't been to bed earlier than 2 a.m. in the city. So that's pretty late anyway. Plus, because we've got so many guests at the house, I'm in a room with my wife, 2 dogs, and both my kids. So your sleep is broken anyway. You've got to let the dog out every, I've got a 16-year-old dog, so every 2 hours he wakes up and needs to scratch the door. So it's kind of all a bit broken sleep anyway.
Oh my God.
And then you're up early because people are up, you can hear them outside, coffee's being made, you don't want to stay in bed too late because you've got your family. So it's been amazing for filling up the social bucket, that energy bucket of getting all that social energy and reconnection. But it's been massively detrimental in the sense that I've been drinking way too much alcohol, going to bed way too late. But your diet goes out the window. And a little bit as post Ironman now, it's like I can kind of do what I want. I'm not racing for anything. I'm not training for anything. Let it all go. But now, I was 5-6 days in, I am feeling absolutely exhausted. And you talk about setbacks. Well, not today, but yesterday, day before, there was a setback I had to deal with, which was initially I thought it was food poisoning. We think now it's not because people have been getting sick later. But I know that the norovirus has been quite big in Salisbury, where all my family are from recently. And I think someone's brought it over from Salisbury to here, because I would say 30% of the group here have gone down with it, including myself. And night before last, I spent the whole evening on the toilet, and thing is, I was on it, and other people were trying to get in because they were suffering. We were kind of swapping. A horrendous night of just, without getting too graphic, fluids coming out of places at rates that they shouldn't, and it was pretty messy. So no sleep at all that night, just crapping through the eye of a needle for most of it. Feeling really, really rotten. I'm over it now, but of course it hits you. It just hits you. And I was saying to you earlier, like you become really thankful for the small things, like really thankful that some people here are staying in tents and yurts. And my parents have put on mobile toilets and all this. It's been they've called it the family and friends festival. There are enough people here. They've got mobile loos and everything. But you become really thankful for having a room in the house with a toilet just outside and toilet roll and things. When at times when you really, really need it. There are definitely things that I take for granted on a day-to-day basis until you need it every 10 minutes. And then you're like, oh my God, thank God there's enough of it. Thank God I've got my own little sharing,
We don't realise some of that. I mean, I've had lots of different experiences throughout my life where I've reflected on those sorts of things. I remember, I don't think this was the first one, but one of the earliest ones. I don't know if you know this story or not. I might have told it. I tell it almost every day when I teach in the schools, and it's when I did my Gold Duke of Edinburgh Award. Do you know that Duke of Edinburgh Award scheme?
I do. And you have told me, but I don't think you've told the audience. So crack on. I know.
Yeah. So it was basically we had to do this hike, and it's a 4-day hike over wild country in Wales, and we started doing this hike, me and my mate, and then 5 other random people. And the first day was really horrendous, right? It got rain, lost, stuck in bogs, like my shoes got soaked through. And then on the next morning, and also what happened is actually we couldn't find fresh supply of water. We didn't realize during the whole hike that we had to find water. And so we ran out of water, and we had no water purification tablets. And we were in this bog at the end of the day, picked up this bottle of water, and it was like green swamp juice. Couldn't bring ourselves to drink it. And so I went to bed hungry, thirsty, couldn't cook our food because we needed water. Next morning, I wake up and I'm so thirsty. And all I've got on me is I'm carrying around these 4 cans of beer on this trip. So I open a can of beer at 6:30 in the morning, take a swig of it, and then I'm just like, want to throw up and be sick. And then I said to my mate, I'm just going to quit. And when the guy comes, I'm going to just jump in the van with him. And in the end, my mate convinced me to do about 15 minutes of walking and just take one step at a time. And then after 15 minutes, the guy still didn't turn up. So my mate said, I'll just do another 15 minutes. So I did another 15 minutes. And luckily after, half an hour or so of walking, the clouds started to part, the sun came out, clothes dried, and even better still, we found this fresh supply of water. And so in the end, we did this hike successfully for the next 3 days. But I really, 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 I learned a lot of things through that. 3 main things I learned was 1, be prepared, because I wasn't prepared. Second thing, I can get through things with the support of my friends. But the third thing I learned, which also is my main go-to method for stress reduction, is even though the rainy days come, the sunshine always follows. So I always say, this too shall pass. So whatever difficult moment you're going through, it doesn't last forever, because nothing lasts forever. And so, but one thing I learned to appreciate massively, both then and when I later went to my 2-year travel around the world, was water. And we take it for granted in the West, but over 1 billion people worldwide have to like travel like 10 miles or more to get fresh water. And I had the experiences as a scout where you had to like hike across the field to like fill up the jerry cans and get water. And so I had a sort of appreciation for it, but it really only elevated when I did that Duke of Edinburgh. Then obviously traveling, and even now, like when I go out the house, my mantra is keys, phone, wallet, water. Right? Keys, phone, wallet, water. Every time I'm going, keys, phone, wallet, water. And I don't ever like leaving water, because I'm super appreciative of it, because I've gone not a lot of time without it, but enough time for it to make an impact on me. And we don't appreciate those things. And I was talking to you earlier about putting on socks. So like I had so much gratitude. Like, so for those of you listening, in 2004, I went on this snowboarding trip, and long story short, I inadvertently eventually found out that I'd fractured and dislocated my shoulder. And as part of the treatment for that, they were going to surgically operate, but they didn't in the end. And basically they kept it immobilized for 2 months. So my arm was in a sling for 2 months. After 2 months, I couldn't move my arm because it was like welded shut. And so it took me about a year of rehab. And I was doing 3 hours a day rehab, an hour before work, an hour after work, an hour before bed. But one thing that I really didn't think about is like putting on socks, right? It's really, really hard to put on socks when you've only got one hand to use. And so I'm always appreciative of just putting on like little things like that, you know? So I think appreciating the little things. And I know I've talked about gratitude over and over, and I will keep banging on about it until the day I die, I'm sure, is just having gratitude. Because that's when I start to appreciate the little things, where you're writing in every day the things that you're thankful for, and you start to think about, I'm grateful that I can go to a toilet, or I've got an ensuite bathroom, or I've got no one else, you know, vying for my toilet time, or whatever the thing is that you might, you know, have.
100%. I mean, genuinely, I was, and it's good because, you know, I love the theories of positive psychology and everything else, but even when you're feeling, I've been feeling absolutely rotten, and it's coming out of you know, places in ways not expected. But anyone that's suffered from norovirus, they'll know how it feels, right? And we're assuming that's what it was. Interestingly, before we got it, there was a barbecue, and the reason we thought it might have been food poisoning is we were cooking in the dark, so we couldn't see if things were ready. And we ate these sausages, and we actually said to each other at the time, the three of us, you know, this is the kind of thing. Do you remember that advert, "When will I see you again"? I think they play that music in the background. It's just like a sizzling sausage.
Yeah.
Government thing of, you know, don't cook them properly, you'll end up sick. And we were going, do you remember that advert? And this is the kind of thing that make us ill. We'll probably end up with food poisoning right now because we can't see in the dark. And then lo and behold, 4 hours later, 2 of the 3 people in that conversation are in bed with what we assume at the point is food poisoning. The only reason we don't think it is now is because since then, several other people have gone down in the middle of the day who didn't have eat food or whatever. So we think it's a virus that's come over. But you end up going, you know what? I was trying to use all the things I have when you're sat on the loo and you're not sleeping. So you're getting frustrated that you can't sleep. You're sat on the loo. You know it's a party day the following day. She needs to get up and be sociable. And I had to genuinely teach myself the art of gratitude, or remind myself of what I'm grateful for the whole way through. Grateful that I'm in France with my family. Grateful that I've got access to toilet paper. Grateful that I have access to a loo. Grateful that I've got access to a comfy bed. You know, all those kind of things. And you are, and you think, and as you say, I think the saying you mentioned earlier that this will pass. About 8, 9 hours. I'm fine now. I'm struggling from the lack of sleep. I won't deny it, but in terms of the illness, it's completely gone. I feel back to normal.
I mean, that's the thing. And also, I remember 15 years ago when things like that would happen to me. You know, it would be way more difficult to think about that positive thing. Now it's kind of a bit more default because I've had, you know, 11, 12 years of, or maybe 12 years of daily gratitude practice. So when bad things happen, or there is no such thing as bad or good, but when quote unquote bad things happen, I do think like of immediately something good. Like even like the other day, it's as simple as it was, and I'm sure I've given different examples, but I was coming back from the gym, bit of a marathon 4-hour session in the gym, but it wasn't like all gym time. It was a couple of classes, some stretching, sauna, steam, all that. But I was coming back and it just started horrendously raining on me. And luckily for me, I was like, I figured it was going to chuck it down about a minute or so before it did. And then I went into a bus shelter and I just stayed there for like half an hour while it came down. I'm like, I'm just grateful that I've got the opportunity that I'm going to be under a bus shelter and not like stuck in the rain, rather than, I wanted to get home and do things. And it really does flip your mind. And I think, people don't really get it until they start practicing it and they start to implement it. And then it does.
It's a mindset shift, isn't it? Because most humans, I think I've done some studies on this, and typically that, have 80% of all our thoughts are negative, right? So it's very easy to get pulled into a negative way of thinking. One small thing goes wrong and we start following, the hamster wheel starts turning. We think everything else is going to follow, and we're very clever and mindful, so we can start imagining what that future self will look like, or future situation will look like, on a negative spin, if that's the angle we start to take. So it's really we catch ourselves, we raise our awareness to go, actually, this doesn't mean anything yet. We can stop it here. I mean, the good example would be my watch on Ironman day, where it gave me a readiness score of 1. I should have taken a screenshot of it. I showed my wife at the time. I was like, this doesn't bode so well. But it would have been really easy as well from that moment to go, well, the race is over. Like, I'm done. It's not going to happen. There's no way I can beat 5 hours. Well, I didn't beat it. But it wasn't because of the watch, just to make that clear. But there's a saying that I always tell my staff at work, and I say to my family, it probably drives them nuts, but your day doesn't dictate your mood dictates your day. Now, with my watch, it could have been very easy for me to go, I've been this dictating how I should feel. I'm never going to make it. That's it, done. Or I can change it and make sure that my mood doesn't follow that negative track. Actually goes, you know what? I'm in Vichy. I'm in a beautiful part of France. It's going to be 32 degrees. I'm going to see part of the country I've never seen before, in a race that I've signed up for and I've been looking forward to for months. And let's just do the best we can. And it doesn't really, actually, the result doesn't matter. No one ultimately cares about what time I get. No listener gives a shit. My family don't really mind. They want me to be safe, actually. They want me to come through it unscathed, and be healthy, and that's fine. So the only thing that really matters is whether do I want to enjoy the race, or do I want to do the whole thing with the mindset of, my watch is telling me to do, I've done badly. Because actually it would have ruined the whole day. I'd have gone into it. And you have to switch it over, and we can do it. But we've got to be aware. You've got to catch our awareness when we're going down those
something I posted on my Instagram story the other day. I don't know if you saw it or not, but it was from someone else's account. But and I'm going to just read it out here, because I think it applies to what you were just talking about. It goes, imagine this: if you had £86,400 in your account and someone stole £10 from you, would you be upset and throw all of the remaining £86,390 away in the hopes of getting back at the person, or move on and live? Right, move on and live. We all have 86,400 seconds each day. Don't let someone's negative 10 seconds ruin the remaining 86,390. Don't sweat the small stuff. Life is bigger than that. And it's like, just because you had a moment in that 10 seconds that is, potentially problematic, it doesn't mean that you have to then throw away the other 86,390 seconds or something like that. And I kind of like that. So I think we can get caught up in that trap of like throwing the baby out with the bathwater, I think, and saying, well, this is ruined, so therefore everything else is ruined, or taking too much stock in what one thing means at the expense of then, like, if you took in too much stock into the whole Garmin reading thing, you might not have done anything in their triathlon.
Oh yeah. What's the point? It's very easy to go into what's the point. I
mean, that's why I often don't look at my Oura ring if I'm going to do a training session until afterwards, because I'm like, you know what? I trust my body. I trust what I feel. Like, it's kind of different. Like, I think you contracted this norovirus maybe, but also you would put yourself in a position where you're going to be more susceptible to being impacted by that, I imagine.
Well, I was going to talk about that, actually. I mean, you talk about a lot in your beat more about health, fitness. We both talk about the benefits of eating healthily, healthy mind, healthy body, right? And we're both big believers in that. And it is really interesting that I haven't been sick for what feels like, I haven't taken a day off work for probably a year for illness, or longer, 2 years. I can't remember last time I took a day, any time off for illness, right? So it's been an awful long time. And yet, within 3 days, or was it would have been day 5 of 2 a.m. finishes and drinking every night and early starts and broken sleep, I've got ill. And it has a lot of the party here that we're here. And you wonder if it was, if I'd been eating healthily and doing all the things that I would usually do, would I have even got sick in the first place?
Yeah.
Now, there's some people listening to this going, yes, you would, because norovirus is norovirus and you can't control that infection, whatever you'd have got it. But actually, the way my body handled that virus, number one, maybe my immune system would have been stronger. I don't know, there's loads of little things to think about. Maybe
I would say to those people
earlier, maybe I never would have picked up norovirus in the first place.
Well, that's the thing. Like, your immune system, firstly, is massively impacted by sleep, right? So I don't actually get ill if I follow my beat model. The only time I get ill is when I don't follow my beat model. So for me, I did a month of that 2 a.m. finishes, 4 a.m. finishes and stuff before I started to get ill. And I think I had a little bit of something during the trip. And there's obviously 1,000 people there, probably lots of COVID, lots of colds, lots of flus. But the thing is, it's never, and I try and tell people this all the time, it's never the thing. It's always the body's response to the thing. So what do I mean? Both people can be exposed to the same virus, but it's not the virus that's making that person ill usually. It's the body's response to that foreign invader that is making the body ill. Because if that was the case, if it was just the virus, then you give that virus to 100 people, 100 people will have the same response, but that doesn't happen.
And actually, while I've got you here, because it's a relevant point, my wife got it, obviously, 24 hours after me, so presumably I passed it to her would be the obvious assumption, may or may not, but that's what we think. She didn't get anywhere near as bad as symptoms, but then she's been going to bed earlier than me each night. I've been going till 2. She's going to be going to bed around about midnight. I've been drinking much more than she has. She doesn't like to take that too seriously. So she's she'll have a nice glass of wine to be sociable, but doesn't take it too far. Whereas I'll have 15 beers, and actually she still got the virus, but nowhere near as badly as I got it. And as you say, probably because my body couldn't react to it or wasn't able to defend itself.
I mean, it's for me, it's just so freaking obvious because, like, otherwise, and this goes into a bit more of a rabbit hole about Pasteur and germ theory and a guy called Béchamp. But we won't go too much into that. But when germ theory came about what was it, 120 years ago? It was like this revolution, like, okay, germs cause disease and things like that.
Yeah.
I think he recanted that on his deathbed, actually, Pasteur. But Béchamp had a different theory, which was more, it's the terrain. It's the terrain that makes the illness with the virus, right? But it's so obvious in a way because, like I said, if you give 100 people the same thing, they're not all going to get the same response or reaction. I call it response as opposed to reaction, because you want your body to respond to the foreign invader as opposed to react. A lot of people, their immune system is so shot to pieces. Like I say, the biggest thing that can help your immune system is sleep, which is why when you're ill, you like to sleep a lot because it's gonna help build you up again. So if you're not sleeping well, if you're drinking, if you're doing all these things, I also am likely to get ill. I mean, like, literally, when I followed my beat model, and I discovered this in 2000. Well, I started implementing it in 2011, but I coined the phrase in 2013. I don't think I got a cold for 5 years. From 2011 to 2016, I don't think I had one single cold. And I used to get 4 or 5 colds a year. And the penny just dropped. It's like, well, actually, you can put me in a room full of people coughing and spluttering. If I'm on form, I'm very unlikely to have the same response to them. Yeah. I'm not saying it's impossible by any stretch. I'm just saying that when the terrain is right, you're going to be, it's like, here's another example. You could take a seed, right? You could take a seed and pop it in a cup, and it's unlikely to grow, right? It's unlikely to sprout into anything. Or you put a seed and you put it in some nourishing soil, you give it the air, you give it the water, you give it all the environment it needs to flourish, and it's going to flourish. It's the same with like a virus, right? If you give it the right environment for the virus will flourish. If you give it a bad environment, the virus will not flourish.
Yeah, and if anyone who's trying to grow tomato plants, right, and I do that every year, I'm quite big into my fruit and veg, as you know. I used to have my own allotment, and I've done various things. But tomatoes are ripe for getting, God, that was a pun unintended, but they're ripe for getting different diseases. So you've got to look after and make sure you're giving the right nutrients in the soil, that you're feeding with the right bits and pieces for plants, that you're looking after. If you don't, they might still grow, but they'll grow weak, they'll grow diseased, they'll overgrow because you're not pruning, you're not looking after it. And they'll wither and ultimately either get very sick and produce rubbish crops or none at all, or they'll die. or if they're nourished and looked after, they do really, really well. And there's no real difference there in terms of what you're saying. If you nourish the body, look after the body, then it'll grow strong and it'll be healthy and everything else. So yeah, you're probably right. I probably was really ill, and I make no excuses. I thoroughly enjoyed the 2 a.m. finishes and the socializing and
that's it. I mean,
bucket. I just paid the price for the last 24.
Well, this is what I say. It's for me. It's never about restriction. Some of my friends are saying to me, "Oh, you know, and even you say this sometimes as well. You're like, oh, you're not like, feel restricted with all the things you do. I'm not going to do the things you do, like in terms of like the blue light blocking glasses, like classic example, right? So actually, the last couple of nights, I had people over and stuff. So the first night or so, I'm not wearing the blue light blocking glasses. But then yesterday, I was like, oh, I'm pretty comfortable now. And I was like, you know what? I don't want to watch TV without the glasses on. It irritates me and I feel too wired. So I was like, you know what? I don't care what I look like or what they think. I'm just going to put them on anyway. But you do it with awareness. So like when I do my drinking or I do my late nights, I'm aware that it's going to impact me. So I will not necessarily do it if I'm going to go and run a marathon the next day, right? Or I'm going to have a big presentation or whatever it might be. So it's all, for me, it's all about awareness, because awareness brings that freedom to choose the response that happens. But
certainly lack of sleep. I'm an insomniac anyways, people know, but that's not why I haven't been sleeping. I've been sleeping because I've been drinking heavily and it's just disrupted by the setup we've got here. But it's amazing how much a lack of sleep, even for someone who's used to lack of sleep, impacts your motivation as well. Forget the illness and the immune system. Like since Ironman, I haven't done a single cycle, a single run. I could have gone for a run today to clear my head. And I went, you know what? I just can't face it. I'm just exhausted. Like I'm not going to go running now. And it probably
do you do anything like if you're not, because you go for your cycles and your runs and things, but if you're not doing that, like have you done 5 push-ups, or have you done some squats, or have you done lunges?
I played a lot of table tennis.
Oh, you like your table tennis?
I do. Well, I do when I'm on holidays, holiday sport. Yeah, nothing like to my usual regimen. I plan to get back to it tomorrow. I think I've made that decision today. It's going to be an early night, no alcohol, just reset the body a little bit today after this.
Going for a walk as well would be, I mean, I
thought it was good for you and I to catch up today, because I said to you before we got online and we were messaging earlier, like, I'm not at my best today. I've just recovering from norovirus. I've been hungover for 5 days solid. I haven't slept, but I'm human. Like, we're human, and I have actually absolutely maximize my social bucket of energy here by keeping and connecting, but I've completely neglected the other buckets, which are also super important, and it's very hard to keep them all equal all the time. And when I get home, hopefully that social bucket energy bucket will stay full for a while, so I can get back to focusing on the other bits.
I mean, that's the thing is like I say in my talks, I always say I often use the phrase becoming superhuman as opposed to being superhuman, because it's a journey and it's about becoming. But also when I say superhuman, I'm not talking about, doing those marathon breath holds or cartwheels down the street that we've talked about before. It's about that normal everyday life. And we are human as well as wanting to become superhuman, which means we are, because one of the biggest things is when you talk in health and wellness, like, I do, and then suddenly you do a podcast or you do a talk and you've got a bunged up nose or you're ill. And it's like, oh, hang on a second. Can I believe anything this guy's talking about, because he suddenly stood there and he's not feeling well himself? It's like, well, we are human, right? We are human. And like I say, I am likely to get a little bit more ill if I don't do the things that I know are good for me. And often when you do talks, I remember once, this was the irony actually, I flew to Portugal for a day to do a 20-minute talk. So I got up at I think it was 3 in the morning, went to Luton, flew to somewhere in Portugal, can't even remember now, got a taxi to the place, got there about an hour before my talk, did a 20-minute talk, and then literally got in the cab, went back. Well, I chatted to people for a bit, got back and got home about midnight. And I was physically, and I don't mind admitting this, I was actually ill at the airport in Faro or wherever it was, Lisbon, I think it was, before I got on the flight. And I don't know why, I hadn't really eaten much, but it was just a whole thing of lack of sleep, stress of getting to the airport, traveling, all of this. And I'm like, hang on a second, I've just done a talk about well-being and being great, and actually I don't feel that great. And the reason I didn't feel that great, and the next day I was, back to it, right? I went to bed at midnight, got up at 9 o'clock, had a good 9 hours in bed. I was totally fine. But it was just that lack of sleep, the travel, being in an airplane, not being able to eat properly, all of these things that if you can't do them are going to impact you.
I think that there's a bigger point to play here, and it probably speaks volumes to the people we are and why we connect and why we even did the show, right? So mindful pass is about, you've said earlier, it's about being aware of the choices that we make. We want to be able to raise awareness for everyone that listens to understand why they make the choices that they do. We give tools like when you say yes, what you say no to, and things like that, and that's all well and good. We're both, no one really knows what the meaning of life necessarily is. We take our own versions of it. For you, it's about vitality. It's about maximizing the human body. It's feeling well. It's feeling safe and secure, which are really important values for you. It's maximizing the potential of the human capacity for you, the mind, and all the different things, the way that you see the world, and that's wonderful. And I agree with many of the things that you do, and I idolize and I'm envious of some of the things that you do as well. You know me as well in the tours that I arrange, which you've come with me on, and you have a bit of, I would say, the way I see it, which is different, but you want some of that, which is life is about stories for me. I'll put myself in places, sometimes to the detriment of my health and well-being, in order to create the story or the memory. So here I've been on a stage. I tell you what, I absolutely bombed. So I'm not a guitarist, as you know. I've played the drums for 20 years. I did track, but I'll bring it back. And we had this stage set up where family members got up and did piano and guitar and all different things. And my dad was there. We're here for my dad. As we know, for those that listen to the show, he's got stage 4 terminal cancer. So it was a bit of a party to say, hey, Howard, we're here for you, we're supporting you, and so on. So he was like, Nick, you'll get that, won't you? And I was like, I'm playing guitar. I was like, well, I don't really play guitar, Dad. I kind of play for me, and I haven't picked it up for about 2 years. Go on, you can do it. You can do it. Why don't you do a Bruce Springsteen song for me? I was like, well, because I'm a big Springsteen fan. I was like, well, Dad, I don't know any. And it's probably only one I know the chords for. And I'm not a singer. My sister is a singer. Oh, go on. He said to me, he put me in this place of, typically I don't get nervous or anxious about performing on stage or being on stage. It's not something that particularly gets me overly nervous. And he used that card and go on, you're never embarrassed by anything. Come on, it's all family. Just get up and do it. It doesn't matter. I was like, all right, you know what? I'll do it. It's for my dad. I want to create a memory for him. I want to create a story for him and for me. And I'm always confident. Got up, got my guitar out, and got tabs on my phone. Had no prep. Got the music up for a song called "If I Should Fall Behind" by Bruce Springsteen. Played the first few chords, felt all right, and all the mic was set up. I've got an audience of about 60, which is pretty big, and came in 3 octaves way too low. I'm like, absolutely butchered it. There was nowhere to hide, nowhere to go. People were filming it, people were videoing it. Absolutely butchered it. So much so that at the end of the song, and I finished, my son came up to me and went, Dad, I think you're the only act that no one's clapped for. And I was like, yeah, thanks, Leo. That's what I appreciate.
That's nice of him.
But yeah, that's nice. But you know what? It was a memory for my dad. It was a memory for me that don't go on.
Well, that's it. It's the bigger picture.
Yeah, it's a big. But I want to create stories. I know you do. Look, I need to have a little disclaimer here. You don't need alcohol to create stories. That's 100% not something you need. But for me, with all my friends, everyone else, I got into the mode. We've had way too many beers. We've done, just being silly, having good stories, and we've created so many memories to the detriment of my vitality and health and well-being and the virus. I would do it all again to be with my dad, to be with my friends and family, and to have norovirus for a day. Yes, I could do it differently. I'm not saying one version is better than the other at all, but we're all trying to find out what we're doing. But I think the most important thing that you mentioned, I want to come back to, is I have done all of it, not necessarily knowing I was getting norovirus, but with awareness that by the end of this, I'm going to be absolutely exhausted. With the end of this, I'm going to be hungover. But hopefully there's been loads of laughs, loads of fun, some bad singing, embarrassed myself a couple of times. It's been full of memories that I'm going to cherish and really look after. And I think for me, life is about stories. It's what we got on our deathbed. It's what we tell our kids, what we tell everyone else. It's what creates legacy or whatever's important.
I mean, actually, going back to you talking about meaning of life, I discovered the meaning of life a few years ago, at least for me. And I have 2 meanings to life. The first one is to love and serve other people, or to love and serve others. But the other meaning that I have is to experience it. And that's the meaning of life, is to experience it. And so when it comes to what I do, and it was interesting you talk about values, and yes, my highest 2 values might be health and security, but I also have other values which are on my top 10 or top 12 list, such as spontaneity, adventure, sociability. And so having the awareness of those values, awareness of those values, and then recognizing that actually what happens if all I do is live by my top values? It means I will miss out on those other experiences that are important to me and create stories and have fun and all of this, that, and the other. And so I will sometimes say, well, no, let's just pause the safety one, and let's pause the health one, and let's pause the other one, and let's do the spontaneity one. Let's do the social one. Because where was I the other day? I can't remember what it was. I mean, I've had a bit of a social calendar I had a bunch of Mind Valley people over for a barbecue last weekend, and this is it. You'll be very proud of me here. Oh, I know, proud of me, whatever. So my mate, it was basically all Mind Valley people, but then I had two mates from back home that came along, and one of my good mates, Nuan, who I've known 30 years, 35 years, I guess, since the age of 12, but really we became friends when we were 15. And he came over and he bought a bottle of, I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called Gentleman Jack. Have you come across that whiskey? It's a Jack Daniels brand.
I don't recall it, but it's quite possible that I have done, because I drink a lot of different whiskies and old fashioned.
Well, it's a whiskey that apparently is double filtered, or double charcoal filtered. Oh my God, it was so smooth. And between the two of us, from about 7 p.m. till probably midnight when he left, we finished the entire bottle, a whole bottle of whiskey between. So I had half a bottle of whiskey each that night, and no hangover actually the next day. It was really, very. I was like, and he was like, he texted me the next day and he goes, I was so happy that I got to hang out and spend that time with you, and you're the last person on earth that I was expecting to finish a bottle of whiskey with. And I'm like, yeah, because when I went into that barbecue, I was like, you know what? I had a few drinks on Saturday night as well. I was around my friend's house, and she cooked me this amazing gluten-free vegan meal, which is probably the first time I've been made food for years. And so I had a few drinks with her, and I was like, you know what? I'm not going to drink on Sunday night because I want to take it easy. And then someone made some smoothie with vodka in it, and I had a bit of that, and then I had a couple of gluten-free beers. And in the end, I had another drink. And I was like, you know what? It doesn't matter, right? Just enjoy, fill that connection bucket, fill that story bucket, have those times. If I wanted to be super rigid, I'd be like, oh, you know what? I want to get up, I want to go to the gym, I want to be clean-headed.
I would imagine in the values bucket, we're probably in different orders, but probably find across the 10, we're not too dissimilar. It's just, they're just in different orders. I think you and I see the world really similarly. So yes, I got on. Well, two things. One is I got on stage and brutally murdered one of my favourite songs by Bruce Springsteen in front of a live audience of friends and family, which I'm over. That's fine, and I can laugh at myself, which is cool. I also think it was good for other people to see me go and do that, because I'd come back from Vichy and everyone's like, "Oh, you've done Ironman, well done. That's incredible." La la la. For those that haven't done it, and you're feeling pretty good, and you're feeling like you really achieved something. And I played drums for years, so I'd been on. I'd done some drumming, and I was like, "Oh, well done. Didn't know you did the drums as well." Then I did the guitar, and I was like, "Oh wow, something you can't do." Okay, that's good. So that was a nice reminder for the audience that everything you try, I put my hand to, doesn't mean it always works out. But what I did do, and I'm really proud of this, I'm going, if I can get the audio now, I've just got it on my phone so I can find it, is after seeing me like completely butcher a song in the way that I did, and not be too concerned about it, and just that it is what it is, I got up and did it. It actually inspired two other people to get up on stage, one of which was my nephew, who didn't want to get up. He was desperately didn't want to get up. He was really nervous. He's been learning guitar, and he's 9 years old, right? Now, I had no idea he could sing. By the way, his parents didn't know he could sing. And he literally brought tears to people's eyes at how good this was. And let's see if I can find it. So bear in mind, he wasn't going to perform it. He did a song called Lava, which is by Moana. And I've got it here. I'm going to try and fast forward it to the end to give you a bit of an idea of how it went.
He was on the brink of extinction, but little did he know.
Well, I'm going to go towards the end of the song, because by this point, that's how it started, which shocked everyone just to begin with. Unfortunately, I think I stopped it before you got the audience reaction. I'm going to play it towards the end of the song, because he actually goes on, but anyway, let me stay with it. It was absolutely incredible. Like, the whole audience got off their seats. He's 9 years old, and literally there wasn't a dryer in the house. Like, everyone was, his dad was overwhelmed, and rightly so. Like, he was so proud. But you know what? I'm not taking any credit. I don't want to take any credit. But the fact was, watching me butcher a song gave him the confidence. To go, you know what? There's nothing to lose. I'm going to create. And what a wonderful moment that he created. He got up and
yeah. I mean, you effectively gave him permission. Often when I do
I lowered the bar, I think is what I did. But yeah, it's the same.
Often when I'm teaching public speaking to teenagers, we have. What happens with it is it's a one-day workshop, and throughout the day there's lots of activities, games, and so on to get them ready. And then they do a 1-minute showcase at the end of the day to the other 30 students in their class. And I've found through experience that I choose the order of how children come up, and I learn throughout the day different things about the kids anyway. And I've found that there's a certain art to picking the order. Whereas if you pick it wrong, I might end up with 6 or 8 people refusing to get up. But if you do it right, you will get maybe everyone up. And some of it is that you might get someone up who really isn't that confident, isn't that good, or they have some impediment that would have prevented them from speaking. And then someone else who was like wavering or really was being a bit like, oh, I don't want to do it. They see that and they're like, well, hang on a second. If he can do it, if she can do it, I can do it, right? And I saw the reaction of the audience, and they were supportive, and so I'm going to do it.
Yeah. There's a great example to that. Is that if you ever got done karaoke, like you get people who will never done, I'll never do karaoke, and they get up and do one song, and then you can't get them off the stage. They're there for 6 songs, 7, like
I might be like that.
Happens all the time.
I'm a bit like that, but actually, it reminds me going back to athletic performance, and obviously, it's a classic example that you, I'm sure, know. And the audience might have heard, but the whole Roger Bannister one, where
4-minute mile,
the 4-minute mile, no one had broken it, and then within weeks of him breaking that 4-minute mile, dozens of other athletes did, and now regularly people are doing it. And it's something about we have this artificial threshold that we perceive we can't break through, and then when someone else breaks through that, it gives us permission, and it changes our belief system around what's possible. Yeah. And we're able then to do it. And it was the same thing with your nephew, I believe. Same thing with Roger Bannister. And we see other people doing things, and we say, hey, why not me? Right? Why not me? And actually, for the audience, why not you? Right? You see other people crushing it in business, or crushing it in athletics, or losing the weight, or doing the other thing. The first thing is to believe it's possible, which is one step. And then the second thing is to believe it's possible for you. And I think sometimes you see, especially people close to you doing something, you believe it. This is why testimonials are so important and so useful when selling products and things, is because we believe people we're closest to, and you think, well, hang on a second, if they can do it, why can't I do it? You know, why can't I do it?
The biggest obstacle is nearly always ourselves, right? Our mindset. Yes. I mean, David Goggins always says we're only ever operating at 40% of what we think we're capable of. And actually, as Marines, as he had to go through the Marine training, or the SEAL training, I should say, for him, but you push through the 40%. That's what they do, and you realize then how capable you are. I mean, I'll give a great example. So bring it back to the Ironman race, and I did the half, and my friend of mine, Neil Adamson, did the full. And he'd been training for the best part of a year, but it's very easy to train independent on things: a swim, a run, and a bike. It's when you put it all together, and your mind, and you've been exercising. For him, it took him 12.5 hours. He was hoping to go under 12. It didn't happen on the day for various things. A, the course was harder than we'd probably trained for. B, the temperature. We hadn't trained 36, let's say. For him, on race day, it was 36 degrees. Very, very hot. And you think, okay, and at the end, he was initially disappointed, I think, with the result. But actually, on reflection, you realise everything considered. He's now an Ironman. He's done what he wanted to do. He finished the race in extreme conditions, right? But on lap 2 of his run, and I was there, and I'd done the run bear mine the day before, a half marathon. So I was at the same stage he was, but I was finishing. He still had 2 laps to go. But the mindset there, every single part of him wanted to stop. It was hot. He was done. He wasn't hitting the paces he wanted to hit. He was really struggling. And I was saying to him as he was coming around, like, David Goggins, 40%, David Goggins, 40%, keep going. And he was like, I'll take that on board. And within 5 seconds, it was out the window. Like, I don't care what David Goggins does. I want to quit. Because it's funny, you know all this stuff. But when you're in the heat,
you know it intellectually. Hard. It's different.
Yeah.
It's different when it's physically. This is what I say to people. Like, for example, the phrase I said before to you, this too shall pass. And I said that is probably my main go-to stress management strategy. And intuitively, I guess, or intellectually, people can accept that, right? The seasons don't last forever, right? Spring follows winter. winter follows autumn, autumn follows summer, and so on. So we kind of know that. And I knew that phrase intellectually. And it was only when I did my 10-day Vipassana meditation, which is this silent meditation retreat that you go to, and you do 10 to 12 hours a day of meditating, 10 days solid. You're with other people, but you don't ever look at anyone in the eye. You're not making eye contact. You don't even hold the door open for them if you're walking somewhere, because you're supposed to be there in your own experience. And in that experience, you spend, like I said, 12 hours a day meditating. And some of those meditating hours, 3 of them in 1 hour chunks, are spent where you're not allowed to move a muscle. So imagine you're sitting there and you've got yourself into a position, and then all of a sudden you get like an itchy nose, and you desperately want to scratch that itch, and you can't scratch it because, I mean, you could, but then it defeats the object of the whole, like not moving. And what you notice is that after a few seconds, right, you sit with it, you observe it, you don't have a craving or an aversion to it, and it goes. And then a moment later, another sensation will come up, and it keeps happening for that hour. And then your back is hurting, and this is hurting. And what you do notice, and I came out of that experience and I learned many things out of that experience, but one of them was this too shall pass, but not on an intellectual level. You learn it on a cellular level. And
you also learn that you would never do this again. Because I think for me, that's absolute torture. I get the lesson.
It was the hardest. Honestly, I mean, I haven't done the level of events that you've done, but I've done a triathlon. I've been to Everest Base Camp. I've done Machu Picchu. I've done Kilimanjaro. I've done skydiving. I've done bungee jumps. I've done a few things. That was hands down the hardest experience.
Yeah. I'd take an Ironman any day over 10 days of not.
It is. I wanted to quit every single day I was in there, right? I just didn't, because I decided before going in that I was going to complete it no matter what. But it's hard. I mean, you're getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, you start meditating 4:30, and you're pretty much going on and off until 9 o'clock at night. And it is hands down the hardest thing. I would kind of like to do it again in a way. Often people go back for more, then there's a more extreme version, like a 40-day version that you can do. A bit like Jesus when he went to the caves or whatever, the desert for 40 days. But it is life-changing. I came out of that thinking I would love everyone on the planet to experience that. And it's free, right? You pay by donation at the end to pay it forward for the next person. So it's totally free. You can do it all around the world. And it's a meditation that the Buddha developed 2,000 years ago, 2,500 years ago. A lot of it was lost in Burma and came out of Burma again in the 1960s. And it's, you spend the first 3 days literally checking the sensations around your nose. And you get to the point, because you're so in tune with your body, that you can almost sense your individual atoms in your body. That's how sensitive you become to what's going on in your body. And you notice as you scan through your body resistance, or you notice tension, and you sit with it, and it kind of dissolves, and then you find something else, and you find something else. But one thing it did teach me was that everything passes, right? Broken bones, good times, bad times, aches, pains, even the universe isn't going to last forever.
They say time is as you always say, cliches are things you need to listen to. I mean, I want to go back to Neil, because I feel unfair if I didn't finish his endeavor, but that too, he did manage it. It was about one, as you say, 1 foot in front of the other. This too shall pass, and it did for him. He did complete it. He managed 2 of the most arduous laps I've seen anyone run in severe heat, and he got it done. But it was so bad. I mean, literally, he collapsed at the end, and they're taken him to the health tent with heat exhaustion, all that stuff. He was really.
The thing is, all that will pass.
But he got it all done. He got it done,
and he'll get and he'll have the medal, and he'll have the medal forever, and he'll have that,
and the story, and the memory, and he'll be able to recall that as well, like you have. So you can probably do the 40-day one because you got through the 10-day one. But like anything, it's like exposure therapy. Now he's got through that. When he comes to another one, he'll be able to go back into his experiences to understand. Actually, I've been here before. I understand what this pain feels like. I wanted to quit then, and I want to quit now, but I know then I finished, and I'll finish now. And you can fall on that experience. So I think I think he recognised well. It'll give him lots of lessons. Gave me lessons watching him as an observer, right? Because I've been in these races.
Well, actually,
I've never watched someone else finish one, and it's inspirational stuff.
So I mean, I talk about this all the time, but I mean, I'm learning things all the time. Last week, I was staying with in Brighton. I think I explained we had this Airbnb. My younger sister just gave birth to her second child, little niece called Phoenix, and we went and met her. She was only a few days old, but my parents had this Airbnb nearby, and in the Airbnb in the garden, it had like a hot tub and it had a big trampoline. And I do trampolining or rebounding every day, but not trampolining. It feels different. So before, not before school, but before the summer club, I was taking my 9-year-old niece to. She came out. She was staying around the house the previous night, and she was on the trampoline. And then she was doing front flips on the trampoline. And then she wanted to teach me. And I was like, I'm a bit kind of cautious when it comes to throwing my body around because I've had that knee injury, I've had neck injuries. And in my head, I was saying, I can't do that. I'm not going to do that. And bless my niece, Nikita. And she was like, okay, let's start like this. So she got me on my knees, just bouncing and then doing a forward roll. Then you bounce and do a forward roll. And then you kind of bounce and kind of do almost like a forward roll, but without touching. And then you stand up and you hold your hands behind your legs. And then I did a front flip like that. Then I did it a front flip properly and landed. I posted it somewhere online. I'll have to send it to you. And it shifted. And I told her, it shifted my mindset because in that moment, like 10 minutes earlier, I was like, I don't think I could do it. And there was a belief inside of me that I couldn't do this. I'm like, I'm 45-year-old man, about to become 46, on a trampoline with a 9-year-old, and she's teaching me how to do a front flip. And I'm like super cautious about it. And then within 10 minutes, my belief about what I could achieve shifted. And I was being taught this by many of my good teachers are children, to be honest. A lot of the beat model came from children. Including babies, as you see my niece Phoenix breathing, and she's breathing correctly. You know, like we were talking about last time. Diaphragmatic breathing. So I learned a lot from children, but I was just like, it stuck with me all day. I was like, you know, this is a belief I had that I couldn't do something, and I teach this to people all the time, but we still have these things ourselves. And here's this 9-year-old teaching me that actually it is possible. And a part of that was
it can go both ways, can't it? So we have limiting beliefs in ourselves, and we talked about at the start of the show how our mental blockages to performance or to anything that we, you know, if we can unlock the mind, we can achieve great things, become superhuman. But also others can often fall foul of the fact that we think we've already mastered something, and then we haven't, and we think we get showy and I've done this, that, and the other, and suddenly something's taken, the carpet's taken from beneath our feet, and we suddenly don't know how to handle it in that situation. And yet we haven't, because we've never been given a difficult situation to deal with, we get lost, and we think we understand everything perfectly, and we're the best at what this is. I don't know. It's you could be Harry Kane for Spurs, and you score, or now at Bayern Munich scoring multiple goals, and then suddenly you have an injury and you come back and you can't quite do it anymore, and it's your mind that takes over. Are you still good enough? You have all these doubts, you have all these different things. So I think it can go both ways, which I think is interesting. It's not just limiting beliefs, but we can be too confident that we've already mastered a skill that actually skill of life takes a life to master, right? And often we
I mean, I remember 4 of the most dangerous words in the English language. Is it 4? Yeah, 4 of the most dangerous words in the English language I say is, I already know that. And when I'm explaining things to people, and I used to be like this, I remember I went to a seminar once, and the guy on stage said, you know, lots of coaches out there in the audience, lots of people who know everything. But the thing is, when you get caught up, let's say the speaker says something incorrect, or he quotes the wrong person, or he says the wrong statistic, you latch onto that, or he's about to explain something, and you go, oh, I already know all this, I don't need to listen. Then you get caught up on that, and you miss everything else that comes after it. And I'm very much like that. My niece, bless her, she's 9 years old. And I said to her, but this was before she was coaching me, I said to her the day before, you need to learn to be coachable. And she goes, what do you mean? And I said, well, when people give you coaching or give you advice, you don't have to accept it, but take it on board, test it, sit with it, try it out, and then decide to adopt it. Whereas she has a tendency to go, I already know that. I know how to do that. I know that. And I'm like, you do and you don't. And just be open to that. And I thought there's so many similarities with me as a child, and even now I'm very much like that. I had this incident last week with my dad and spaghetti, which I don't know if it's funny to go into, but he wanted me to drain the spaghetti, and he was telling me step by step. He was like, you know, put this there, and I was like, and I was just pouring it, right, because I knew what he wanted, which was the end result, drain spaghetti. And now I knew in his head he was worried that the spaghetti was going to go through the colander holes. But I knew that those holes were smaller than the spaghetti because it wasn't the same as the one we got home. So I was like confident doing it. And it just reminded me, because I'm sat there going, yeah, I already know that. Just don't tell me what to do, sort of thing. Because
showing him as well that you know what you're doing.
Yeah, and I was like, and it ended up in this whole frigging argument thing, and I'm just like, just trust that I know stuff as well. But also, it reminded me of being a kid, and also how I still am now.
Well, it sounds like you brought a little bit of ego into the conversation, which
I totally got ego going in. It's like, I already know that. I already know. You don't have to tell me how to do that. And they are the four most dangerous words in the English language.
I thought you were going to say, which only say it's interesting because it goes back to the limiting beliefs of what we can achieve. I didn't know what the four most dangerous words were going to be. I've not heard you talk about that before, but I would have made a guess of the four words would be, I can't do that.
Oh, right.
I already know that. But it interestingly links more to the limiting beliefs of what we can't do when actually we can do. So I was interested that the words you gave me weren't what I was expecting, but they're the opposite end of what we were talking about. It's either limiting belief or we think we already know it. And either way.
But the thing is, thinking you already know something is limiting.
It is, of course it is. There's
it closes opportunity.
I like my parables. I haven't done one for a while, but there's one here. There's a parable about do you know the parable of the archer?
No, I like listening to your parables. Give me your parable.
Let's call it Robin Hood. It doesn't matter. It's a Robin Hood level skilled archer, right? Goes to challenges a Zen master to a competition with the bow, and he says, "Watch this!" And he draws his bow and he hits the bullseye on the first try, and then splits the arrow again with the second shot, and hands the Zen master the bow and says, "Now you try." And the Zen master goes, "Hold on, follow me." He doesn't draw his bow. He's undisturbed. He's Zen, right? He's chill. So he asks the archer to follow him up a mountain. So he follows him up this mountain, and they go over rocks and they pass chasms, and they end up at the top of this mountain. And the top of this mountain has a really flimsy bridge and a shaky log. And the master steps out into the middle of this unsteady bridge. It's got things missing from it, and it's moving around, and the rope's all frayed, and it looks like it's going to go. It's really perilous. And he then draws the bow, and he hits the tree on the other side, the bridge that's perilous and shaking around. Then he gives the bow to the archer and says, "Now it's your turn." The archer comes in, stares with terror, looks at the bridge and goes, I can't do it. I can't do it. He couldn't even force himself out onto the bridge. And the Zen master basically says to him, "Look, you have great skill with the bow, but little skill with the mind that lets loose the shot."
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting. It's like, yeah, you can hit that in your little comfort zone of your great, but that's all in repetitive motion and skill. There's not saying there's no skill there. You have great skill with the bow, but not with the mind that lets loose the shot. And I think that's really quite powerful. That you go up to a bridge and
Well, I like that story.
Do it anyway. That was which I also love. But anyway,
I think I'm taking a slightly different learning from that. I was thinking like it's easy to get what you want or hit the target when everything's going your way, right? When you're on stable ground. But when life is like this, life is unstable, life is shaky. But can you keep your focus? Can you keep your eyes on what's important to you when things are unstable? And this is what I teach in my yoga. I go, it's easy to do your meditation and breathing in the comfort of a yoga studio, but how easy is it to be Zen when you're stuck in traffic and someone's cutting you up and your parents are annoying you and your kids are screaming at you? That's when it's important.
I think it's the same reading I get, really, which is I maybe we're interpreting it as something different. I think we're interpreting it the same. It's when that carpet is taken from beneath your feet. Can you still control the mind when everything's
exactly. It's the same. I like it. It's good. All these Zen masters, they know a thing or two, don't they?
They do. Well, these go for all the dawn of time. One thing I wanted to come back to, I'm conscious of time, and I'm really enjoying today's chat. I could probably talk to you for, as well, I usually can, for a lot longer. But what was it, 18,500 seconds?
No, 86,400, I think.
86,400. Okay, so seconds. I thought it was really interesting, and don't lose 10 seconds on something that's gone bad, which is I love that. Love. Glad you reshared it, and that's something that resonates with me. I like those kind of statistical things to think about. But what I was talking to my wife about recently as well is I have an hour a week that I spend with my daughter. We try and go bowling each week, and occasionally I'll say, "I'm not sure if I've got time this week." And I worked. I can't actually remember the answer to what it was now, but at the time I worked out how many minutes there are, and you'll probably know straight off the bat in a day versus how many minutes there are in a day versus a week, and how many minutes there are. I was like, wow, if I can't spare 60 minutes to do that, when you add up all the minutes there are in a week, every single week, then the issue is never with time. The issue is always with me and prioritization. And actually, if that's one of the most important things in my week, and we're planning things, that has to be near the top of that thing, then everything else needs to shift to make sure I can accommodate that 60 minutes. And I was just, it popped into my head when you were talking about these 86,000 seconds, because often we hear people say, I just don't have the time to do the things that actually gives them the most memories, the most value, the most vitality, the things they really want to do. I haven't got time to go for a run this week. I haven't got time to take my kids to the beach. Whatever it is that works for the individual listening to the show. When you look at it from a different point of view, which we talk about a lot, my view out of one window would be very different to someone else out of another, but we're looking at the same thing. When you look at it at scale, when you look at how many minutes there are, and you break it down to realize how much you want to commit to that week, to that thing that for you is really, really important, whatever that thing is, there really is no excuse for not doing it. But because we don't look at it with that viewpoint, we look at it as the day's already passing us by, that we try and fit things in and we don't prioritize correctly. We don't do the things that give us the vitality we need in order to achieve the thing that's important to us. We let it pass us by. And that makes us negative. It builds those negative thought patterns we talked about earlier. It makes us resentful of ourselves and of others because we can't do the thing we want to do. But we're just looking, I just think often we're looking at it the wrong way around. And I think that 86,000 second thing resonated from that regard. I know it's different because he was talking about.
It is always about firstly, no one has time and no one can find time. You can only ever take time. You have to take something from something else. And so I think it would be worth actually doing a whole podcast on prioritization, unscheduling and things like that, because unscheduling is a really cool concept, which I think, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it or not, but it's this idea of scheduling in all the things that are important to you first before you schedule in your other bits effectively. But we can go into more detail on that on a proper podcast, because if you say, and this goes back to values, because when I do values exercises with people and they say, oh, family is really important and health is really important. And then I say, okay, well, if you look at your hours in a week, how many hours are you spending with your family? How many hours are you spending on your health? And they're like, oh, and it's like, how many hours are you spending at work? Well, I'm spending 12 hours a day at work, 6 days a week. So yeah, but you're saying that this is what's important to you, but then your actions are showing something else. So either what's important to you is not what you're saying, or you're living out of alignment of your values, which ultimately will create stress.
It will. It's inauthentic. It's not true to your values, your values or your beliefs or your authenticity. Yeah, I think that's probably worth another show. I just worked out the calculation of how many minutes there are. And actually, the results are really interesting. I'll tell you for why. If I told you there were 10,000 minutes in a week, and I know you're quick at the math, you can get it really quick, and you've got to find 60 minutes in that 10,000. You had to allot all those 10,000 minutes up.
Yeah,
things that are important would do that really, really well. And maybe people say they haven't got time, but interestingly, I didn't know this. I've just done the math on my calculator. There's 10,080 minutes. So that 80 minutes, I think, is really interesting. So surely everyone can use that 80 minutes to do something that's really, really valuable, and you've still got 10,000 minutes to do everything else. So I don't know. I don't know why that's important to me. I look at that
10,080 minutes.
I have to be able to free up at least 80 minutes a week, right? Because it almost feels like they're given to me for free, because 10,000.
Yeah. 10,080, yeah, absolutely, right. And 60 minutes out of 10,000 is what, about 0.6% or something like that? Yeah, so if you can't spare that, I mean, it's like I heard Arnold Schwarzenegger, he's talking about, he's like, oh, you've got 24 hours in a day. If you tell me you haven't got time to work out, right? You've got like 8 hours at work, you've got, 6 hours sleep. And he goes, well, some of you are saying, well, I don't sleep 6 hours. And he goes, well, what I would suggest is sleep faster or something like that. But he makes the point that if it's important enough for you, you'll find a way, right? Yeah. You either find an excuse or you find a way, basically.
Agreed. I mean, we are definitely got off track, and it's 100% my fault. Although I'll blame you for the 86,000 second comment, which I love. By the way. So I'll take half the accountability for it. Listen, I've really enjoyed today's chat. It's given me some energy that I've needed, because I am hungover and tired and recovering from virus, which is arguably self-inflicted by my lack of attention to my.
When are you back? When are you back home?
We come back on Thursday, the 31st. It's a 4 a.m. start to get the ferry, and I'm straight back into work. Following day, I'm at our annual work party sort of celebration.
Oh, nice. Oh, you still have to come at some point. You'll have to come stay here, because I don't know whether you. Well, ideally, you
may be able to do our next recording potentially, or the one after next, at your house, because I am in London and including a weekend. I think from the 7th to the 14th. So I'll get in touch, because I think that weekend.
Oh, do. I mean, I might have some people over on the 9th for a barbecue. It's my birthday on the 10th. So that'd be quite
Perfect.
cool.
Well, listen, put me in for your birthday. I should be around on the 10th. So that sounds like a plan.
Yeah, that'd be cool. And then we can hang out. We can, you can live a little bit like I do in terms of the craziness and the smoothies and the gym and all that.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I can bring my guitar, mate, and give you
I've got a guitar here, mate. I've got a guitar for you.
My terrible butchering of Springsteen's.
Neither of which I play. So
well, neither do I, apparently. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. All right, listen, look after yourself. I'll see you when I'm back in the UK. Thank you for listeners for bearing with the audio quality because I am in France with really bad internet.
Yes.
The audio should be back to normal from next.
Stick with us and do connect with us online. Share these episodes with people as well. Where I'm the Thought Gym, you're Nick J Day. I think online on
Nick J Day. And we do have a Mindful Pass.
We do have a Mindful Pass Instagram, which someone is kindly helping us out with.
Vicky Graham is very kindly helping with us, and it's so bad on Instagram. I can't even remember our tag. You'll know what it is.
It's Mindful underneath Pass, is it? Mindful underneath Pass.
It is. Let me find it. Hold on. It is please follow us. Mindful_pass_podcast on Instagram. So find us on that. Thank you, Vicky, for managing that channel for us, and we'll see you online. Thank you for tuning in to the Mindful Pass podcast with Nick Day and Hari Kalymnios.
We hope you found our discussion insightful and gained valuable takeaways to support you on your journey.
Please do leave us a review on your preferred podcast platform and share an episode that's resonated with you with a friend or a family member who you think may also find it valuable.
Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast to ensure you never miss a future episode.
In the meantime,
we'll continue exploring mindful path topics to provide you with more insights and ideas to support your personal growth.
For now, thank you for your support, and we look forward to bringing you the next episode of the Mindful Path podcast real soon.